We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. As per the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, Public Chapter number 300, members of the public are invited to provide comment on matters germane to the items on the agenda. With that, we'll move to item 2.0, approval of last month's, approval of today's agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second? It's been first and second. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Item 3.0, approval of the minutes for August 12th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you. Couple of housekeeping items. Staff, has it been decided where our October and November meeting will be held just yet? Okay. If possible, we can just email that to the group so we get a little bit of a heads up. I know we've got a meeting ahead, but had a few questions related to that. Another reminder to commissioners, if there's any items that you need to recuse yourself on, please do so prior to that item being read by just raising your hand and requesting to be recused. Public comment. Let's see. Is there anybody in the audience that needs to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda? Please raise your hand. Do we have any council people or public officials in the audience? Mr. Coopin. You're here for an agenda item, correct? Okay. All right, great. With that, we'll move on to item 5.0, approval of the consent agenda. 5.1, CD07, approval for Madison Boulevard and Denson Avenue stop sign relocation requested by NDOT. Item 5.2, Council District 19, revocation of abandoned valet lane on the northwest corner of 12th Avenue South and Lowell Street, and authorization for new pay parking effective 24/7, requested by NDOT. Any questions on any item on the agenda? Any items need to be pulled off? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Okay, item 6.0. 6.1 CD19, authorization to extend the downtown sidewalk vending restriction into the Gulch, including the area bounded by Broadway, 12th Avenue South, Division Street, and 8th Avenue South, requested by Councilmember Coopin, NDOT, and NAIOP. Is there any public comment related to this item? We have, if you mind, please come forward. So we have Joseph Woodson. Thank you, Mr. Woodson. Dirk Melton. Thank you. And then Councilmember Coopin. If you don't mind, hit the red button and state your name prior to speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, or good afternoon, rather. Councilman Jacob Coopin, appreciate y'all having me speak and being here and all your service, as always. y'all will recall earlier in this term, we expanded the no vending zones in the downtown area. We were getting concerns where people were stepping into valet lanes and stepping into traffic, and lines were forming across the sidewalk. And so we expanded that by one street. I think that's working really well. We still see vendors set up on the sidewalk on less trafficked areas, and the higher trafficked areas are now protected. And so we're hoping to do the same in the Gulch. We had originally attempted to do that back then, but decided to split it up to do some more studies, more data. From the data that's been shared with me, it seems like it's supported in this area as well to open that no vending zone. Again, we see right now in the Gulch, I'm hearing from a lot of residents of obstructions and people trying to walk down the sidewalk and again having to walk in the street or step around these carts. And I tell people I wish we had wide enough sidewalks to do it all. I wish we had like New York, where we could have a kiosk and have vendors and also have safe passage for sidewalks. And I've worked with NDOT to try to find places to put vendors. The challenge we run into is this sidewalk area as it relates to pedestrians passing through. So again, the residents are really supportive of this. I've talked to a number of vendors and tried to work with them on alternative options. Working on the private parking lots right now as an option for food vendors, for example. So again, continuing to work on this, continuing to take public feedback, but do ask for your support on this matter. The residents of the Gulch really have been asking for this for a while. I've kind of kept them off so we can go through the process, but I feel like it's time to consider it. So thank you.
And I'm Joseph Woodson. I represent NAOP, who's Nashville's Commercial Real Estate Association. NAOP supports this current vending map update that NDOT will present today for a number of reasons, which the council member was so helpful to outline, many of which. Currently, vending in the right-of-way in the Gulch is negatively impacting residents as well as brick and mortar businesses, many of whom feel that the right-of-way does not support this type of use in the Gulch, which causes walkability and safety issues. Some have indicated that this may lead to eventual relocation out of the Gulch if the issues continue. The Gulch is one of the city's most successful revitalization projects, and given the thought of businesses or residents considering even relocating is clearly a bad sign. And to that matter, because of the Gulch's unique characteristics as a business district and as a neighborhood, NAOP and its members recently worked with Councilmember Coopin and Gulch residents and the city to even update the construction noise requirements within that same area. Primary foot traffic in the Gulch are people who live and work there or people who visit the brick and mortar businesses. So street vending rules in the area should be similar to those in other similar walkable areas of the city. And so again, that's what this new proposal suggests. And I thank, again, Councilmember Coopin, as well as NDOT for working on this proposal. And then I thank all of you for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dirk Meltz, and I'm the president of Market Street Enterprises. We're the original master developer of the Gulch neighborhood dating back to the early 2000s and still control most of the land and buildings in the neighborhood. I'm just here to lend a personal perspective to what we're dealing with in the neighborhood. And I use the word neighborhood very intentionally because this was always a project in Nashville for Nashville and for Nashvillians. And what we're seeing now is we've reached kind of a critical breaking point where the types of things that are happening with street vending in the neighborhood are starting to push people out. For the first time, we're seeing residents choose not to renew their leases in our buildings because of what's going on. For the first time, we're seeing retailers close because of what's happening on the sidewalks. And, it's a trend that was very concerning to us and to other stakeholders in the neighborhood. So we appreciate this opportunity to be with you today to explain what our concerns are. We're so grateful for the help of Councilmember Coopin to really, bring this to a head and get us in a situation where we think we can have a more positive resolution, whereas, the vending that's happening and the specific types of vending that are happening are really incompatible with the idea of a neighborhood. And so we're grateful for your consideration today.
Appreciate that. Just clarification for the commissioners and the commission. This is for presentation at this point. We are not looking to vote on this today, is my understanding. So appreciate you all coming and providing some clarity and some direction as to your perspective. We are going to open up time for questions once the comments have been raised, but I do want to give a chance for staff and NDOT to speak to their position on the issue as well.
We We had a similar process almost a year ago where we expanded the no vending zone south of KBB. And the process that the commission followed then was to show the map, kind of have an initial presentation, and then we sent out mass mailings to all the permitted sidewalk vendors that we have on file. And then after that was done, we followed up with a vote afterwards. And so that's what we're doing this time. We're showing you the map. We're giving you an introduction to what's going on. We'll have a mass mail out later this month, and then next month we'll ask you for a vote on the expansion.
Appreciate that. Deputy Director, do you have any comments?
No, other than just to reiterate, our concern is always pedestrian safety and conflicts with vehicles. We have seen with the pedestrian loading in the area, we've actually have some data that we can share at the next meeting that shows the intensities that we see during certain periods of day where we are concerned as far as that activity with relates to people stepping in the street, for example, and being in conflict with vehicles. That's our number one concern.
I appreciate that. I think that data is important, if that could be included in next month's meeting as we continue to review this. Any questions from the commission? Go ahead.
I guess one thing I'd also like to see too is, obviously we implemented a no vending zone in Broadway, and so there's data that shows a change in potentially any sort of incidents that have occurred, and the Gulch, similar in style in some places in the sense of how much is there. So if we could show like how much has changed, has it actually shown a difference in terms of incidents? And then, if you're going to show incidents within the Gulch, that'd be great too, so.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, we can do that. We can actually share you violations that have been cited, for that before and after. So yes, we can come and share that and share.
And not just violations of the vendors themselves, but I mean, what we're trying to do is we're saying we want the free flow of pedestrian vehicular traffic, and we're working on safety. So
Yes.
if there have been safety reports that have occurred.
Yes, understand.
And I'd like to really see pedestrian incidents that have
Yes.
happened in the downtown core and then in the Gulch to show that difference between the two.
Understood.
Captain Jones, I hate to put you on the spot. Would you mind sharing any insight from Metro Nashville Police on this issue that could shed some light on the condition from y'all's perspective?
Safety is paramount. It's number one. From our perspective, I know we had challenges on Broadway and in Entertainment District about safety as it relates to the sidewalks, no space, things of that nature. And the Gulches, from my experience working downtown, it's so busy and there's so much going on. And it's growing and will continue to grow. But I think consistency on the safety standpoint is very important. And I think as we look at this expansion, I just think that as long as we keep safety in the forefront of our minds, and not just now, as the Gulch and the area continues to grow, I think this will set a good tone and to put a good foundation for the city and for the Gulch and for the community going forward.
Appreciate that. Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead.
Would this be an outright ban? It wouldn't be like a reduction in the size of carts or trying to, I guess, maximize the available space that's there and still let people vend?
It will be an outright extension of the no vending zone, and so it will be an outright ban of vending within the extension in that area, if you look at the maps.
That is within the public right-of-way.
That is correct, within the public right-of-way.
So if I can add in, so it would be a ban on those particular streets. We specifically curated the streets with high pedestrian traffic where the data supported it, so people would still be able to vend on adjacent side streets that would not be included in this zone. But there's the main streets that would be included would be precluded from that on-street vending.
And currently the width is, this is new to me, so, the width for carts is an issue, or there can't be like a reduction in this, the width of cart for vending?
The width of carts is always an issue, but in this case, down in the Gulch, it's not just carts. It's vendors who have set up racks of merchandise, not just on a cart or stand, but on multiple clothing racks and spread them across the sidewalk. It's vendors who set up tables, in addition to some little wagons or handy carts with them too. So it's not just one cart. It's a multitude of devices that are blocking the sidewalk.
And I'd also share, if I can, sometimes it's also the lines, right? So even if you have a small hot dog cart that's sitting on a piece of the sidewalk at a popular time of day, you'll have a line that lines up, and those lines then block traffic. So that's one challenge. The other challenge from an enforcement perspective, and what I've seen, is you also have people that do get their appropriate permit and then vend, and then you get folks that don't have their permit as well. And then in this situation, it becomes this where NDOT staff have to approach this individual and find out if they have a permit or not. And if they don't have a permit, they're asked to leave. So it puts an extra burden on NDOT staff as well to kind of determine this, because we do have both permitted and then unpermitted individuals trying to vend. Of course, that's something that we do for permitted areas, but it adds a layer to this. And then again, even if they are permitted and they set up and they're not taking up the entire sidewalk, when they have a line of guests or of patrons, that tends to block up the remaining sidewalk areas.
Anything else? Councilwoman?
Thank you. Just a couple questions. So the Gulch is, as somebody who rides my bike through there and walks through there often, a hot mess, for lack of a better way to put it. And part of it's the mobile vending. I also think maybe NDOT can correct me, I don't think Downtown Connect went into the Gulch, but also the ride share and just sort of the constant stopping and starting of vehicles in such a narrow area is a real challenge to safety. So hopefully, as we look at implementing corrals where people are not getting fees for picking people up, we can look at the Gulch specifically as well, because I think that is a big safety issue. And then people are like bopping out and running across, and you're like, what is happening here? I know though, when we did, I think the only question I have at this time is, when we looked at mobile vending versus sidewalk permit, we actually specifically talked about some places in the Gulch that would be appropriate for mobile vending where the parking spots are. And I just want to make sure that the ban doesn't affect mobile vending. It's just for the sidewalk permits. Is that correct?
You are accurate, yes.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, the parking lots would be codes and code permits and things like that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the mobile vending, and I know that we had a discussion about that earlier this year. It'd be great if we could have an update to that as we consider this. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is, you're talking about blocking traffic and how this operates. The number one thing that blocks me as I'm traversing through the Gulch is those wings. So that's a huge tourism destination, and I think trying to say it in that direction, are we going to start preventing destinations like that where it actually does involve people creating a line of something that we really want people to go see and enjoy? So if we could kind of think through how that looks compared to, this is mobile vending, but if there are stores that have lines or hotels or all these other things, should we be considering that as well, or should we decide if there's other regulations we can do, or?
I think to Councilmember's point, I would love to see a comprehensive look at the Gulch as far as rideshare goes, as far as the line from the wings, as far as any sort of blockage. I think as we're seeing, the traffic is growing and growing, and the Gulch is continuing to develop. So anything that's really impeding the pedestrian traffic, and I think Commissioner, you make a great point. We want to encourage people to come and enjoy themselves and to be part of what we're doing and part of positive elements of our city. And how do we balance that? And again, I would love to see recommendations on where these vendors could go. I think that, when I came before y'all originally, I had high hopes of finding spots, and what I continue to run into is the limited sidewalk real estate we have to work with. But I do think a comprehensive look is warranted.
Any other questions? So-
Chair, I do have one more comment.
Yeah.
So with regard to Commissioner. So we are looking at scooter corrals and bike corrals, and that's an effort as part of Connect Town. In addition, we have talked about vendors or talked about with businesses about using sandwich boards and other obstructions that can be on the sidewalk and cutting down on those uses as well. So we are, it's not just sidewalk vending we're trying to address. We're all trying to address the other obstructions, but that's a good point. A comprehensive look is definitely well needed. That was part of what we talked about with Connect Downtown, but we will continue to look at that.
Thank you for that. I think for a vote, this will be on the agenda for next month for a vote. I think a few things that were mentioned to consider is just data around the vending that we can review. Commissioner Cornick, you mentioned mobile vending, and are you just asking for an update around where it is, the locations currently? I just want to get clarity so we know what to expect.
I thought we were sending that as they were working on
A
actually
comprehensive.
putting it into the code because we're still in a pilot.
So it passed council, and so at this point, I think it's actually back with NDOT to draw up a policy.
That is correct. We can provide an update at the next.
Okay. Does that policy, it comes here, I'm assuming?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're asking just for an update around where we are with that and just something to review for the next meeting. Is that tied to this item or is that a new business item?
I mean, I would like to consider it as we consider this too,
Okay.
in the same way, just from that same sense of like, if you can park in the street and sell something, but then we're saying you can't do it on the sidewalk, and that kind of consideration of how do we be somewhat accommodating to what's there, and there's still gonna be
Great.
lines for people for a mobile truck that's parked there, so, that is one of the concerns that I heard.
Okay, so if you can provide some things around that as well, and then I do agree a comprehensive plan around overall in the Gulch. I know that's not something that we can do overnight, but continue to make an effort to make strides. Fair point with the mural and some other things. Lines and things that are created organically just with the popularity of the area. But if we could continue to just work on that comprehensive plan, that'd be great. Any other questions or comments for this group? Really appreciate your time, and we look forward to this being on the agenda for next month for a vote, so thank you. Item 6.2. We do have a few folks. Item 6.2, presentation of expanded metered parking rate structure requested by NDOT. We have Backstage Strategies. I'm sorry, is someone from Backstage Strategies here? Shawnee, sorry. Please come forward. Anybody else on this item? And then we'll let, Emmy, we'll let you go afterwards. That's okay. If you don't mind, hit the red button and state your name for public comment, and you have the floor.
Shawnee Glapion, Backstage Strategies. Okay, so one of the questions that we were wondering here is whether we'll be rolling out new meters or in all the spaces, or if they're just mapping them out for future rollout. So that was my public.
Repeat that, new meters for,
So the meter expanded parking meter rate structure, will these be new meters that are going in as well, or this is for a future rollout?
I got you.
Yeah.
What was your, I understand you now, I'm sorry. What was your other question or comment?
No, that's the question.
Okay, so after this, they're gonna provide a presentation.
That's why I thought it was gonna be after the presentation.
So, my apologies there. If that's your question, we'll let them come up next and get the presentation.
Okay.
Councilman, did you have any pre-comments or anything?
Y'all are gonna get sick of hearing from me today, I'm sorry. My just quick comment, because I've reviewed the presentation previously, is that I'm just want to share my support for this measure. I've heard from music industry, venues, businesses, folks around downtown that are really would like to engage in street parking but find it untenable due to the limitations on the hours that they can park, and so are very excited about the opportunity for parking longer. Rudy's Jazz Club, for example, we did get that expanded, but for some time folks were not patronizing the club because they could only find 2-hour or 3-hour max parking, and they were intending to go for a longer show. I do hope that the department and the commission continues to work on employee and locals parking. I think that's another challenge. When I look at these rate structures, I think it works for a patron, but then if you look at an employee that has to park outside of Rudy's, for example, you know, each night that they work, that cost can add up. And I know they're looking at that and looking at what we can do for locals as well. But I think this is a big step in the right direction. And then the last point I'll make is, I appreciate where these funds go. To my understanding, some of these funds from parking went to the Demumbrian Street bikeway improvements, for example. So I have had some folks ask me like, hey, we're generating this revenue. I hope it's not going to just pay for a parking company to enforce it. And from my understanding, no, it's actually going directly back to our infrastructure, which I appreciate. So just wanted to share my support on this item.
Thank you, Councilman. Emmy Brandon, please state your name for the record. You have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Matias. I'm with NDOT.
Brandon Boateng with NDOT as well.
So this second phase of rollout for the smart parking program that we have presenting to you today is something that we believe will help fine-tune the parking in Nashville. And it does it in multiple ways. First and foremost, it includes significant improvements in terms of extending the times, as it was mentioned just a second ago. The rates will be cheaper within the first 2 hours. There will be an option to extend in 30-minute increments, so those who would be just in and out of a business would be able to now extend within 30 minutes, or with 30-minute increments instead of an hour. Also, the structure, the rate structure, as you'll see in a second, is catering towards using full dollar amounts. So it's going to be more efficient as far as payment goes. And it also extends the 2 and 3 hour maximums to 10 hours, which will again benefit, we hope, the public and the community. On a larger scale, there's benefits that will be coming out of this long term, which would be the air quality and emissions, and it would be reduced vehicle emissions, obviously, with having less vehicles idling and looking for spaces when they understand what the parking rates are and how many hours they can park. It allows for vehicles and the drivers to be informed about their parking options and decisions. And that would make it so that there's going to be less idling and less circling around the block to find parking spaces. So that's one of them that really impacts on a larger scale the air and quality emissions, promotes alternative modes of transportation, creates a healthier environment, and obviously reduces the carbon emission footprint. As far as public transportation, it increases ridership, reduces traffic congestion, obviously reduces infrastructure cost. It is TDM compliant, and the transportation demand management is a set of strategies that aim to increase the efficiency of transportation systems by reducing travel demands and redistributing in time and space. Social equity part of it, and then obviously quality of life. As mentioned previously, the first 2 hours should be cheaper. People will be able to park for longer periods of time. It's going to create savings at the end of the day, especially for those who are in and out of the city or in the parking areas where they're metered multiple times a day, but only for, picking up food or just doing their chores, whether in private or for business purposes. And then, as previously also mentioned, it would create a boost for the city. Next slide, please. So, and I'll answer the question that was posed earlier in this segment. So the current rate structure as it stands right now is such that you would have availability to park within the first 3 hours. And so we would have parts of downtown core and outside of downtown core that would have set up rates This one specifically is the downtown core or central parking district. And so up until now, it was $225 for the first hour, $225 for the second hour, and $225 for the third hour, and that would be the limit. Past the 3 hours, parking was not allowed. It was a violation. What this option that we are presenting here today brings is that it really opens up the availability of parking for up to 10 hours for those who really want to, and allows to make a decision based on everybody's needs. The rate structure is as follows. It's $2 for the first hour, it's $2 for the second hour, and then there are increments of $5 and $6 for each additional hour up to 10 hours, at which point the session will end. There is one additional factor that I would like to mention, and we'll have a separate slide on that as well. The presentation today that we are, the change that we are proposing today also introduces economy parking zones, which would allow for some of the areas, the ones that are underutilized, to promote the same parking options, but at a cheaper rate. And so we designated some of these areas in both the central parking district and non-central parking district. But as you can see, that would even further discount the parking. So it really combines the best of both worlds, the extended time limit and the cheaper rates in these economy zones. And for those who would still want to park within the areas where they have an option to either park at the location where they are and then decide if they would want to extend their times up until 10 hours, or if maybe a parking option, a parking facility or open lot would be a better feasible and financial decision. So just being able to provide these options is something that we're looking for. Same for the non-central parking district. The previous rates were $175 per hour, and this would change to 2 hours. However, we would still have the half an hour increments for extension. So anybody who before would want to park for half an hour would need to park a full $1.75. At this time, they would only pay $1. Same principles apply here. Parking would be allowed up until 10 hours, and economy zones would be $1 per hour, which would make it significantly cheaper. So just to mention again, currently non-CPD areas also don't allow to park after 3 hours. So this opens up and extends the time that is allowed to park for everybody in the non-central parking district as well. Next slide, please. So the economy zones for underutilized areas, we've looked into the areas that we feel are underutilized, and we analyze these areas to find really throughout all of the hours of the day that don't get a lot of traffic, and we would want to have an incentive for public to be able to park in these areas and at a cheaper rate, and perhaps either use a scooter or walk or use means of transportation to get to the final destination. And so this is really the purpose of the economy zones, to help push either the alternative modes of transportation and provide cheaper rate, and also being able to utilize some of those areas that are currently underutilized for parking. This obviously is something that, this is our first draft, or the decisions that we made for time being. I'm assuming that within the next 2, 3, 4 years, these areas might expand. So we would like to have the right to modify the economy zones and add or remove them as the city grows.
Thank you for that presentation. Do we have any questions? Any questions from the commission? Councilwoman.
Thanks. So I know right now we have an issue where, like, if you're parked, say I go to Fido and get coffee in the morning and then want to run somewhere nearby in Edge Hill, like I can't just move my car if I'm within the time period because I'm in the same zone, right? When we increase it to 10, are we addressing that issue at all? Like if you go to Fido in the morning, you get coffee, but then you gotta go back to the kids' school in the afternoon and park on a street that's in the same zone, but you're within 10 hours, are you gonna be able to do that? Or are you gonna get locked out like you are now?
So within the same zone, yes.
Okay.
If you go from one zone to another, then the session restarts. Because they're not, the time is not transferable to a different zone.
So I guess I have concerns because I use this example because it's the one that like in my life is the easiest, but I'm sure there are tons of people who come downtown for something twice a day and they're gonna need a park. And if you're extending it to 10 hours, they're gonna need to start a new. So I'm just trying to figure out how that's gonna work with the zones, because we do hear a lot of complaints where somebody's like, well, I was here and then I went over here and it was too far to walk, so I moved my car, or I have mobility issues, so I moved my car, but then they couldn't start a new session in the zone. Are we fixing that?
I think I know what you mean. So there's going to be a half an hour lockout period for people to be able to start or restart the session.
Okay.
So that kind of helps too. If you're here and your time expired and you go somewhere else, you can start a new session again. But if you're within the same zone, it's just a half an hour lockout is what's going to help.
Okay, half hour, that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then, I think that economy zone makes sense. Those are areas where I've noticed the spots are often very empty. But I would say those are also areas where if folks had the opportunity to extend, money might not be an option for like some of the students, for example, who would like to park there all day. So hopefully we can revisit that and make sure it makes sense, because I would hate to think we are setting an economy zone, which literally is only not used right now because people can't park there for more than 2 hours, and then all of a sudden they'll pay any amount to park there, 10, and it's full all the time.
Understood. We'll look into it. And I apologize. I don't think I answered the lady's question. If I could take a second for that as well. So this really is just a rate structure remodel. We will be using the current technology that we have in place, which means with signage change, obviously, because the rates will need to be by law displayed on the signage as well. So this would be a software upgrade, in that we would roll out each phase or each district at a certain time. We would change the signage, we would inform the public, and then the existing QR signage would be replaced with the new ones, and then the meters would get the software update to include the new rates instead of the current rates. And then anything new that will be installed in the future will already include these changes.
I just want to provide clarification to the councilwoman's question about the different zones. So if you go to a zone and you buy 10 hours, you go to another zone, that zone is not still active in the other zone. You have to pay for whatever hour or whatever hours you need. So if that person, is going to, say, zone 1, for example, and they plan to stay there for 10 hours but then leave, they can come back. And it still be active within that 10 hours?
As long as your time is not expired, you can move anywhere about the district as long as the time is not expired.
The district, but if they go to another district, then they have to start a new session.
Correct. You start.
And then they would have technically active sessions in 2 different districts.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Does that?
That's super helpful. I think that actually helps with the lockout period,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
you can, if I've got 3 hours with variance and they're all downtown, but it was 2 before, I'm not gonna get locked out.
Right.
Correct.
I think the thought for that individual is get parking pretty close to what you think you're gonna be. If you need to extend it, extend, but if you need to move around, then it's kind of tough. I just want to make sure we were informed in the right way with that.
Thanks. And I guess to that end too, the signage, I don't think does it have your current, I'm trying to think what happens. It tells you your zone.
Yes, it's on the bottom.
We may need like
Are you color coding them?
We are looking into color coding, yes.
Okay, I was gonna say something just to sort of make that clear to
Yes,
people too.
yes.
If they're moving around within the zone,
Correct,
go ahead
yes.
and
Correct,
buy
yep.
your whole amount of time.
Yes.
We have a deep dive into that for sure. Yes, we are looking into that.
The zones. I think I just have one
Go
last
ahead.
question. I really appreciate that people can extend, particularly when you look at like downtown, because we do have some underutilized spots, particularly at night, like over on like Diedrich and stuff like that, that are often empty that now folks who work downtown might be able to use. Did we also look at whether it made sense to have, I know we have like the residential parking program overnight downtown, if you live downtown, something like an employee parking system where somebody could pay a flat fee per month in addition to sort of create that additional cost savings for people who know that they need it for work downtown?
Not as part of this program, but we are revising the RPP program, so I think we can address that there.
Commissioner Gibbs.
Couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
How was the parking rate structure developed? I'm looking at it and it would seem to me that at 5 hours, if you're $10, when you get to 10 hours, you should be at 20. But just an example, I saw that at 5 hours, it was like 22, and then at 10 hours, it was at 50. So are you trying to discourage people from parking for long periods of time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second question, for the designated areas, has there been any thought in making those into areas for employees that are parking on a daily basis in the downtown areas? And if so, doing some kind of a little placard or something that can be in their car, because once this goes into effect, I think that those areas where it's cheaper are going to become very popular. And you're going to be, again, excluding the people that need those spaces on a daily basis from being able to use them.
It's a good point, sir. Well, currently, the way we approach it is a first come, first serve, which includes anybody who would want to park there. But you bring up a good suggestion. We can look into it further.
I have lots of thoughts and questions. Very happy that we're moving forward with the phase 2 here. Thank you for the work on this. So talk about the underutilization of the street. Our goal on-street parking is to have people park for a short amount of time and then move on. So there's turnover.
Correct.
Can you explain more about the underutilized areas and like what percentage you're seeing? What is I would really like us to have the goal. The first thing that people see, so they understand what this is to do, is to say, normally it's like an 85% utilization on the street, so there's always 1 or 2 spots. That's what we're trying to encourage. And then as you look at other streets, if they're lower, what number are we actively doing? So that way we can see when can we move something into the different tiers as well.
Understood. So for this current draft that we had and the selection that we made, it's really just the areas that show basically no movement at all. So it's a high contrast compared to all the other parking areas and parking meters. So it's just, if you look at the numbers based on the amount of hours that were utilized or amount of money spent, there's barely anything there. So it's just really trying to engage people on, moving to these areas as well. And then as, again, city develops within the next 2-3 years and we need to amend or change things, then we are willing to do that as well.
Adding into this, we're going down to $1 per hour, I think, in the economy
Correct.
in some areas.
Yes.
We should be willing to go down to 0 too in some places, and just you put in a QR code just to let people know. I've seen that in our neighborhood where there's free parking for 3 hours. It still doesn't get used. And so finding that price point and be okay going to 0 seems to be something we should be willing to do. But yeah, I think that this is a great step. One thing that was part of the contract and has been presented in the past is kind of the revenue and expenses. Can we start to get that either posted monthly or, just more transparency into this so people can see where this money is going and where it's coming from? I think that was really valuable the last time it was up there, and I don't think we've seen it in a very long time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the suggestion.
Would there be a suggested frequency for that? I think it's a great point. Could it be,
I mean, it's a dashboard that's supposed to be monthly.
okay.
I would rather it's somewhere public monthly. I don't see why that would be.
Can we dig into that and just get some solutions next
Yes.
month, if you don't mind?
Yeah, and an added piece, I know Councilmember Coopin had mentioned the bike lane and like showing people this isn't supposed to be an option to take money and you do that, but when we do that, we want to show the value of it, and so can we show the projects that we're actively doing?
Where does it go?
Beautification
Yeah.
projects that we're
Got it.
doing.
Yep.
And that this money came directly from this, and this is helping the people of Nashville that way.
Yes, sir.
One set of other questions, is that okay? All right, so the other piece is identifying the fact that we're trying to move people off street with this in some cases as you go deeper on there. We do have rates in our 2 garages that we own that are generally very low. Our occupancy is generally very low. We have very cheap special event rates. It seems that we are sometimes struggling to get people into those. Maybe that's an opportunity to kind of post signage when you are parking on street to say, hey, if you're going to be here longer, maybe there's an opportunity to go to the garage and this will be a better deal for you.
Right.
But I would like to see that balancing point of, break it down for people to show that, to say, you can do an all-day parking at both of them for $20. And both of them, it takes a really long time to get to that $20. And if we're really trying to move people into that, I think we need to kind of dig into those numbers a little bit more.
Yeah, understood. And one of the points why the rates are progressing in the model that we have now is really to have people consider, well, if I can get a monthly pass for $150 or $190 somewhere, wouldn't it be better for me to do that rather than paying the 20, 30, or 40, $50 on the curb for one day? So the price kind of pushes them that way, but we can definitely do something active to where we inform the public about that choice.
Yeah, I mean, I know the less math that I would have to do when I'm kind of thinking through it and show that as here is the best way to go about this.
Makes sense.
To do it that way.
Yes, sir.
Go for Sonny.
Good?
For now.
Any other questions?
I guess I do have another question then. Within our enforcement, it's kind of split between there's LAS has some people.
Nope.
It's all NDOT.
It's all in that,
staff
sir. Yep.
Okay. How many enforcement?
22 right now. We are working towards 25.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest concern that I heard a lot is just, how is it working with the vendor and kind of thinking through that. I think people take parking and they kind of throw it all into the people that are off street, and some of them are operating differently than we are, and we're trying to use different goals that are there. So any time that we can kind of explain that relationship and how we are operating, I think even myself, there's a little confusion in terms of like what that program looks like. It's an annual fee, but that annual fee is a monthly fee that's actually increasing. And some of the bonus structures and the KPIs, if we can get some sort of report on that, I think that would be helpful to know if they are meeting their goals and how that's operating here. I think like getting to this next step should be one of their goals. And what's the next phase that they want to try to get to, and what are the things that we should be looking at to try to build towards that expansion?
Understood.
Thank you. So, great presentation. The effort here is to get line of sight on what you are proposing so that we can have a vote next month. A few things that I heard, and commissioners, please chime in if I miss anything. If we can understand the districts and then the colored signs and what that looks like for each district, just so the public can understand, where those lines are drawn. The understanding of revenue versus expenses and establishing the frequencies on how you can present that. And then what I heard was just really an overall plan for the future related to offering some incentives for parking, for special events and others, and those needs, and then potentially employees or people that frequent downtown, some options there. So I think if there's nothing else, if you all could do some homework and get us some information back there, I feel confident we'd be able to provide a vote. Anything else?
Good deal.
Again, great information and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, item 7.0, unfinished business. 7.1, CD 19, a request for all-way stop at Cheatham Place and Delta Avenue, Cheatham Place and 9th Avenue North, and Cheatham Place and 10th Avenue North, requested by Councilmember Coopin. Just a quick refresher, it was asked in last month's meeting that you all would go work together to talk through and talk around this item to come up with a solution and or an alternative based on what was stated in last month's meeting. If first, I believe there were Mr. Ruffle.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, and then Earl, is that correct? Okay. If you don't mind, state your name and who you're with for the record. Hit the red button, and you have the floor.
Hi, my name's Neil Ruffle.
My name is Earl Schreiber.
Yeah, so we've been residents, my wife and I, on 10th Avenue North for the past 5 years. And we've experienced quite a lot of traffic traveling very fast from Monroe Street through 10th Avenue, going across Cheatham, down to Garfield and turning onto Arthur Avenue, which kind of skips the stop signs that are on Arthur Avenue. And so as a pedestrian, crossing the road there at Cheatham is, I feel, dangerous. There's not very good sight lines. As if you're driving, the same thing if you're coming across Cheatham. Again, there's people park on the street. You do not have good sight lines, so you're kind of inching out in your car. It's dangerous if people are coming. You can't really see traffic coming through 10th. I think there's probably, and my experiences are from 10th Avenue because I live on 10th Avenue. So we hear a lot of speeding cars from where we are. We're very close. The house is closest to Monroe Street there. And so we'd like the four-way stop sign. I understand it's not a road calming measure, but I do think it would slow down traffic. And I think from a pedestrian standpoint, it would be a great addition. It would make it safer for pedestrians walking across Cheatham Place. I'm an avid walker. My wife and I walk. That's our primary form of transport. I walked to work this morning, and so having these four-way stop signs, having safe pedestrian rights of way, and having it safe for people driving as well, going across Cheatham, coming off of Rosa Parks. I really do think that I want to get rid of this cut through here, avoidance of stop signs in other places. I think this would be a great addition, and I'd love to see it go in. We've tried to, request this four-way stop before, on 9th, on 10th, on Delta, but I really do think it would be a good safety measure for pedestrians, and consistent with what I see just across the way in Germantown. Thank you.
My wife and I live at 1006 Cheatham, so we're 2 doors down from this intersection. So I'm coming at it from a different angle. And my wife and I are also, and our killer 4-pound dog, are also avid walkers in the neighborhood. And we do see the cars speeding down 10th. So as we have, and it's a good thing, as we're building more high-density housing in the neighborhood, there is, you have more people living in a condensed area, more street parking. So that intersection, whether there's something going on at the church at the corner, or just, some kind of event, someone's having, friends over, that street parking can become a real problem. And you are then forced on Cheatham to go into the intersection quite a bit before you can even see, traffic. And with the cars speeding down there, it does become a rather hazardous situation for us.
Thank you. So, staff, do you all have any additional comments? Councilmember Coopin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in, and we sent these late, so I printed a couple copies, and apologies, they're double-sided and not stapled, but I'll pass these around to y'all. I feel like I need to say, may I approach the bench? I'll read through these, some highlights in a minute, but these are additional letters of neighborhood feedback that folks that wanted to be here but couldn't attend for work or other matters. And as I mentioned before, I'm Jacob Coopin, councilperson for District 19, and appreciate this commission's hard work and the staff on this one. I don't often find myself at odds with the NDOT recommendations, so I kind of venture into this with the utmost respect for the department. To me, this is an issue of pedestrian safety, it's vehicle safety, and it's a space that I've watched multiple near misses. I've been in multiple near misses myself, and I just don't feel like I can stand and wait for more crashes to occur to put these stop signs up. We're hitting about a crash a year, as we've seen with the data, and while that's not the 5 crashes warranted by the manual, that's still a crash a year. The department did ask me to support a deferral to the November meeting, which I'll explain in a second. I am supportive of a little bit more time. I hate to do it because, again, if something happens between now and November, I will personally feel blame for that. But I do appreciate the department's offer to come out to my neighborhood. They said they'll come look at the signs with me and talk through it. I know they did put up no parking signs. And I've driven this a number of times. I really wanted to be accurate and exact with my request. And as we get really granular with it, there's one particular approach as you go from Arthur Avenue to Rosa Parks and you look to your left, right? So if you're driving that direction, you look to your right, you do have decent sight lines. But if you look to your left, the first street, there's a building in the way. And so unless we're tearing that building down, there's nothing we can do outside of fundamentally putting a stop sign up to protect it. Again, there's another area where there's a building and some brush, and a third area where there's a large utility pole. So these are things that no matter what we do with no parking and things like that, we're not gonna solve it. And according to the MUTCD, it does allow for an engineer's determination of sight lines to indicate a 4-way stop. So we do have that if the engineers were able to find that sight line is problematic, and so that to me introduces some subjectivity and interpretation, of course, based on their expertise. And then in conversations I've had so far, started to talk a little bit to Metro Legal, sorry, not the TNP Metro Legal, but some other conversations I just had while talking about other issues. There's some questions that were raised that I'd love to explore with the legal team as well to really ascertain. I've heard the pushback on these stop signs is Metro's liability, and of course, I want to make sure to protect Metro from liability, but I continue to wonder if the speed limit's 25 miles an hour, what type of accident would have to occur at 25 miles an hour if someone runs a stop sign. Even if it's an improperly placed stop sign, they've still run a stop sign. And at 25 miles an hour, what incident would have to happen where someone would then sue the Metro government and then win against the Metro government? To me, there'd have to be substantial damages in that case. And of course, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see Metro at liability, but I wonder what our legal exposure is. Again, also understanding from what I've been told, there's lots of these stop signs up throughout the city that are currently not warranted. And I've asked, how many times have we been sued over a non-warranted stop sign? I believe the number is 0, right? So to me, this is something that may have some risk to it, but currently we know that there's a risk of leaving the situation as is because we know that we're going to get an accident per year at these intersections without these stop signs. So, again, I know there's a lot of nuances to this. I want to continue working with the department. I'd love to find a way to have the department feel comfortable supporting this request, which is why I'd be supportive to move this to the November meeting to discuss. But at the end of the day, safety is of utmost importance, and I don't want to keep your time too long reading through each of these, but we have at least 5 or 6 neighbors that have all said the same thing, which is talking about the cut-through traffic on these streets, talking about the confusion and near misses when folks approach these intersections feeling like they should be a 4-way stop. I was even on the phone with Director Alarcon talking about this issue while I was at the street and watched someone on the cross street stop as if there was a 4-way stop there. So I think people are behaving as if there is one sometimes. And again, I submit this all to y'all, and we'll be back, hopefully, if you support that motion, be back in November with a final request and hopefully get everybody on the same page. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Just legal real quick, what's the proper protocol for distributing information? And I'm asking for my knowledge.
I did ask Mr. Freeze before
if you don't mind, let me let legal, just curiosity, as to what the proper protocol is there, thanks.
For distributing what type of information?
Well, just him handing out,
Oh, yes, I'm actually, writing Mr. Smith and Ms. Thompson an email right now to please add it to the agenda for the website. And
Okay.
it'll be added to the website as part of the documents that are added after every.
so should it be distributed to us prior to a meeting, or can it be handed out in this setting, or what?
It can be handed
Okay.
out during this setting, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Deputy Director.
Oh, yes. So you heard, we have actually had several conversations with Councilmember Copeland about this and other alternatives. We do recognize, the need for traffic calming. All these streets actually are on the traffic calming, have been awarded for traffic calming, so they will all be receiving speed cushions. So we are hopeful that that will really address a lot of the speeding issues on there. But we are still, based on what we communicated last time, stop signs are an incident generator. They do. When you have a four-way stop, it does generate incidents. So we have looked at and used the manual of uniform traffic control devices, used that guidance, but also you looked at the sight lines. We are going to go out with the council member on Wednesday to look at it again and actually propose some additional things that we can look at there. We are talking about some tactical urbanism type deployments that will involve using some other, I remember during the last time there was the option of bollards and some ways to actually calm traffic, in advance of there. So we are looking at some of those alternatives, and we want to present those before the council member, actually, when we go out and talk to him.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
When you mentioned traffic calming, I believe only one of the streets has been selected for traffic calming and that's been installed, but I think the other two are still in the request stage, but I could be wrong.
I believe they've been selected, but if I'm wrong,
I think
I
Delta was
apologize.
selected, but I don't know about 9th and 10th,
Yeah.
but that'd be great if they are.
Yeah.
So if I may, I think the item here is specific to 3 intersections. What I'm hearing on this deferral, and it was requested last month by Councilwoman to have a more comprehensive approach.
Mm-hmm.
Are we deferring to look at this more comprehensive approach, which would be in addition to what's asked for here?
We are deferring to actually meet with the council member in the field and go over some of the alternatives that we want to share with him.
Okay.
Before coming back to the commission.
So request.
Actually, and I will say this, the traffic calming measures would not require
Sure.
a vote by the commission.
But if there's added, I guess, what are you looking for? Are you looking for us to do something more than, so we'll be looking at this again next month?
That's
based
correct.
on what y'all's field work is?
That's correct.
And you're saying until November, which is too much,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
My apologies. And then, I guess with that, I would love to know, I know we've done some speed cushions, some other traffic calming measures at these locations. Want to ensure that we're doing what's best for the area and not, I know some of that stuff was already under construction, just understanding what's there, what we're doing, would be great. And then, and this may be a question for legal, but the only thing that we can vote on is for the items on the agenda in November. If there's additional things added, can it be added to this and we vote on it, or do we need to get rid of this and have a whole new item on the agenda?
I think you can only vote on items on the agenda. So there would have to be a specific item in November for you to vote on.
Which leads me to just suggest, if this thing is going to grow to other items comprehensively, an approach may be to uphold this and come to the agenda with an agenda item in November with, it sounds like you all are doing a pretty deep dive in the area, because when this comes back in November, we're just voting on these 3 intersections. And I'm asking. Councilwoman?
That is correct.
I would just say, I'm really not comfortable with that. I mean, we asked for this to happen a month ago. It hasn't happened. It should not be this hard to get stop signs in a heavily trafficked pedestrian area with the population that this part of town has. And I think what we heard last month is that NDOT looked at crashes, but it didn't take into account this subjective measure of, can we really see when we're trying to turn onto this street? And the answer across the board seems to be we can't see. So if everybody, including the council member and the neighbors, are comfortable deferring this a month, I'm comfortable deferring it. But just because there may be other stuff that needs to come before us, I don't think that's a reason to vote something down today that is an important safety measure.
I appreciate that point. My clarification was just that if there's other thing that comes of the meeting, the expectation is that, if something happens on Arthur and 10th, I'm just using that as an example, that's going to be a new item, right? It can't be included in this, is the clarification that I was.
Right, I believe.
If I may, I'd like to point out, Arthur has not been studied with regard to these intersections. This study has been for Delta and 9th and 10th on the intersections with Cheatham. Arthur is a different item altogether.
And I think Monroe was mentioned as well with, when you were speaking, you mentioned Monroe and the intersection there. I think there's a church or something, but Monroe. And I just want to be clear in that when we come back in November, it's for these three intersections.
Of all the intersections in that neighborhood, these are the three that to me are the most problematic. I know Monroe has been requested for traffic calming, and that's a different conversation. And like the council member says, part of me did want to just ask for y'all to move forward with this and vote for it. I still personally think that, to the council member's point, sight lines are really bad on that left approach as you cross Cheatham, and I think that it could be warranted. And again, I think the legal exposure feels limited to myself. And so my intention would be, if nothing else changes, that in November to ask you to approve this item, even though the staff report doesn't recommend it. So my approach would be to kind of continue as we're going, unless, and hopefully maybe there's a chance by that point, NDOT and I have worked something out that works for all of us, and then we can come together on a recommended approval. That's kind of where I'm at. My hope is that by bringing the team out there, we can talk through what the engineers are seeing, what I'm seeing, and things like that.
Great. Deputy Director.
Yes, so I would like Andrew to go over some of the staff analysis points and what was actually looked at as far as the analysis, because we did look at the sight lines as well through that process. So Andrew, can you review that?
In these photos, I took these photos when I was out on site to do an on-site investigation. I was out there to install no parking to corner signage. You can see this intersection is Cheatham and 9th, and you can see the traffic calming measures that were already in place there. I've had crosswalks added on all the approaches on these intersections. And again, no parking to corner signage within 30 feet, so that we want to prevent people from parking too close to an intersection, because I hear what you're saying about sight distance and visibility. Well, we accomplished that with keeping people off of the corners, keep the parked vehicles away from the intersection. So we've accomplished that. I hear over and over, and we share your concern with speeding traffic, but always stops don't reduce speeding traffic when they are unwarranted. These stop signs, this always stop signage, is not warranted at these locations. If there were a really bad sight distance problem, then the crash history that we have would support that, but I'm afraid it doesn't. The traffic volumes, in order to meet those warrants for a major street approach, you'd need to have about 210 vehicles each hour over an 8-hour period, and 100 or 140 for the minor road approach over the same 8-hour period. And just based on my field observations, it's nowhere close to that. We don't implement always stops because we feel like there's speeding traffic there. That's where we need to use the traffic calming measures that we have in our toolbox. I brought my MUTCD manual with me. You guys have heard MUTCD. This has been around for a while. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And when stop signs, when always stops are implemented that don't meet warrants, you don't decrease crashes. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, with all due respect to the MUTCD and the department, that is highly variable on when you go out there. And the last time I fought for a stop sign, the department turned it down over and over and over again. And we only got it when Vanderbilt did its own study and proved that thousands of more people were using that intersection, and a child was hit and a teacher ended up in the hospital. So while I appreciate that the manual has numbers and you can take a snapshot in time at an intersection, it does not make that intersection safe, and it is our job as a commission to make sure it is safe.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. This is not Vanderbilt. Typically, you see the greatest traffic volumes during peak hour times, and that's the time that I have observed the locations out here.
When the department went out to Hillsborough High School to look at that, it was done during the middle of the day, not when school was letting in and out. And we still don't have any safety measures there either. I appreciate the work the department does to get this data, and I know it takes a lot of work, but we have to prioritize people's safety and common sense over the numbers in the book and a snapshot in one day and one time.
Commissioner Kornsick.
So I've also read the MUTCD. And again, there are numbers, but there's also other criteria to put out there. And I went out there today, too, to look at it. And another criteria that can be considered is the need to control vehicle-pedestrian conflicts near locations that generate high pedestrian volumes. And there is a public housing facility that we just built that's beautiful. There is a library that's walkable. There is a Kroger that's walkable. There are churches that are walkable. There are restaurants that are walkable. The thing that bothers me is being out there is a disorienting experience if it's their first time there, because the roads don't make sense. We literally built an apartment building where you come out of the parking lot and you just drive. You get to an intersection immediately coming out of it and you just keep going. I don't know why you would go that way, because you're going to go over to Rosa Park, and across the street from that in Germantown, which I imagine has a higher socioeconomic status of it, there's four-way stops all over the place. And it's just, that's the part that's a struggle, is we do unwarranted stops all over the place, and we do them for different reasons. And this seems like a place where it would make sense based on what's out there. And I mean, there's one right by me that's on 2nd Avenue where it's 10,000 vehicles that are going down there. It's not to control the speed. It's literally to make sure that people are stopping there so that pedestrians can also traverse the area without having to install a light.
Yes, sir, we are in one accord. The answer isn't more unwarranted stops. The answer would be traffic calming, and there's different things that we can do for that, and we'd like to have that opportunity.
Go ahead, Dr.
Ultimately, it's, we are staff support for you, right? So when we receive a request from a council member, or we receive a request from a neighborhood, and it comes to the agenda, and we add it to the agenda, we are staff support for you. I mean, we provide our professional opinion, but it is up to the commission to make these decisions. I mean, that's why it is set up to do that. We would like I said, we have provided our professional opinion, based on the engineering studies that we've done, looking at the manual of uniform traffic control device. It is up to you to make that decision, whether you will accept a deferral or you will move forward. It is your decision. That's what I'm reinforcing.
Commissioner.
And the one other thing of it is, I mean, you guys did do traffic calming in this area, and it still doesn't feel safe. And that's because it is a separate program. In every single traffic calming meeting you go to, you're told, we cannot do stop signs. We cannot talk about stop signs because that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And you can see the traffic calming at the intersection to try to make it slower at the intersection, which is a waste of putting traffic calming there. That's not how we're supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to be doing it in a sense to actually make that intersection safe, which we do in other places. And,
Well,
and that's
I
how
understand your perspective. Again, I mean, we'll disagree on that. We can talk about it more. We view the manual of uniform traffic control device and the engineering judgment that goes along with that. It does provide the avenue for engineering judgment and analysis, and we've looked at the sightlines, and it's just part of the profession of a traffic engineer to look at that and try to reduce the number of incidents that are occurring, right? So in our opinion, I'll say this again, in our opinion, based on our professional judgment, a stop sign is not, because the stop sign is not warranted, that warrant is there for a reason. The warrant is created there because evidence has shown sometimes when you put a stop sign when it's unwarranted, you have incidents, you generate incidents. So that's what our position is. You put a stop sign up here, you're going to generate additional incidents. I understand the perspective that you're saying, and that maybe it feels uncomfortable, but we go by what the data that we've collected, and maybe we're missing data. Maybe I can recognize that. Maybe we're missing. I've heard a lot about near miss data here today in other anecdotal information in here, and we are definitely willing to look at other information and other data and use other tools at our disposal to do that. But it'll always be our recommendation to not install a stop sign when it is not warranted, and we don't, based on our engineering judgment, when we review it, that is what the determination. We had multiple engineers look at this, not just Andrew. We had 3 different engineers look at this. We weren't trying to just say no intentionally just because we're, trying to make a point about it. This is based on those professional opinions. So, but it is up to the committee. It is your decision and your discretion to make that. Whether, you have a motion before you today to defer it, and we will go out, and we have promised, we actually have a meeting on the calendar already to go with the council member and talk about other traffic calming mitigation strategies that can be used instead of an unwarranted stop sign. So that was our plan. I understand the urgency. We are definitely, we look at hundreds of stop sign requests every month in here, so none is more important than the other. We look at all of them, and we try to be as unbiased as possible and look at the data. So that is what we are. We are staff support for you. And that's all we can do is staff support and provide our professional judgment. That's what we've done here. We've provided our professional judgment. But it's up to you as the committee, to decide whether you want to accept the deferral or what. It's up here for you to vote.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Final thought, yes.
Yes, just a couple last things. And appreciate the department. To my knowledge, the data is meant to quantify the experience, right? The data is trying to draw a line in the sand to figure out what is the experience like. We've talked about an unwarranted stop sign is not because the data doesn't warrant it. It's supposed to indicate, will people stop here? Will this be a safe intersection? Or are people going to feel like it shouldn't be an intersection and then blow through it? And again, we've talked about Commissioner Kotornik going out there and seeing that it does feel like it should be a 4-way stop. I was, like I said, even anecdotally being on the phone with the director and someone stopped at that intersection as if it was a 4-way stop. And so we're already having these potential conflict points occurring in these intersections. And I'm aware there's lots of requests for stop signs. I get lots of requests for stop signs in my district. This is the only one I've brought here because I feel like it does rise to the need. And I just come back to the sight lines and the lack thereof. If you look at the first picture on the left up there, and I, again, really appreciate and respect the engineers who've taken their time to look at this. This photo looks like it was taken from a sidewalk. If you move that camera to the left to the end of that line where a vehicle would be sitting and a driver would be sitting, you can already see in that photo the troublesome sight lines. And then if you go even further to the left, it's even worse, right? So there's not really a way to see a car come in and respond. And if you go back one street that I don't believe is photographed here, it's even worse. Right, so again, I come back to the fact that if the MUTCD does allow for sight lines to be considered, and there's a sight line problem, to me, it would be warranted. With all due respect to the staff, and I just think that sight line issue is there. And again, I can see how if you look at the other directions, it may not be a sight line issue, but that looking, I think it's northbound, looking that way on each of these intersections, to me, that's a sight line issue there.
Thank you. Any other questions from the right?
I've been on this commission a few years now, and I've listened to the analytical arguments about stop signs, but I do want us to remember that we're here about pedestrian safety. And sometimes things may not make sense except for the people who live there and walk there and experience that day to day.
Yeah, I just had a question about the other means y'all would have through the traffic calming. Could y'all discuss some of the options that are available through that toolkit?
Yes,
If
yeah.
if I may.
Go ahead.
Corby, could you scroll back up to item 5.1? I'd like to show you something you guys just approved earlier today. This is the stop sign reconfiguration. This is an intersection of Denson Avenue and Madison Boulevard, and it's kind of a Y intersection right now, and we're kind of squaring it up a little bit, but I really wanted to call your attention to the markings, see the photo on the right-hand side, markings and some flexible delineators. That's a really good example I can show you right now of things that you can do that might be something that we could pull out of our traffic calming toolbox. And if you have questions about that, I'll be happy to field that. But I think I just wanted you to see that, you know, as an answer to your question. That is one of the things that we do at intersections.
The other thing that, Chair, the other thing that we've directly referenced, and I know Diana had some conversations with Councilmember Coopin too, as far as traffic calming, tackle urbanism type options. We've talked about the possibility of actually using some neighborhood traffic calming circles at these locations that would actually provide a traffic calming circle at these intersections. So we've talked about a lot of different things.
Anything else? I think, do you have another? No. Sorry. So, great discussion. I think the suggestion here is to defer it to November is what you would suggest for this item here. Just to clarify, it's for these three intersections and the plan around what we're going to do there. If there's something comprehensively around other intersections in the area as a whole, as Commissioner Wood stated, pedestrian safety is paramount. She's been on the commission for a long time, so that's first and foremost with regards to anything that's with this commission. So would strongly encourage the department and council member to talk through the comprehensive approach to understand if there's additional items that need to be added to the agenda. It'd be great if we could have those suggestions as, you know, this be an item along with those others in the same month, so maybe we could look at them comprehensively or whatnot, would be my suggestion. I think deferring this 2 months, are there specific items on the top of your head that you're looking for in order to get the department to recommend this? Or is that something you all need to work through over the next 2 months to get there? Because with regards to pedestrian safety, there's obvious concerns in the area with the community, right? And, you know, 2 months, it seems short, but it is 60 days. And it's so I just want to make sure we're guided in a way when this comes in November, we are addressing this, and it's not a, hey, we're voting to say no or yes. We want to vote to solve the issue from the community within a way that supports data and common sense, right? So, and you don't have to speak to it. I'm not, you know, we don't need the answers here. It's just an encouraging to where if you want 60 days and the commission grants you the 60 days, when we come back in 60 days, we do something, okay? Because this is we're 60 days in now, right? So it sounds like it's urgent for that and the community. So do we have a motion on this item?
I guess I'll make it out, motion to defer this to the November meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Do we have enough? Does it pass? Who, how many ayes do we have? 2, 5. Okay, and 2 noes, so we're good. So it is passed. A couple of comments, though, that settled in, I think it's for staff. It sounds like there's some frustration around the process to get a stop sign in the city. If you all could come to next month's meeting and just have a presentation to help us understand what that process looks like, just as an informational piece, that would be great.
We can go from day one when we receive a request and what that process looks like. We can provide you a complete overview.
Just a general path would be great. And the data around, we use this as an example of the data that you review and just what that looks like in that process at next month's meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Just involved in that, just as like another thing to maybe, I don't know if this is a next month thing, but if there could be some work done of, show us what's happening and what monitoring's done on non-warranted stop signs. I mean, if they're out there, they're approved, if you guys are paying attention to them and what that process looks like.
Yeah, so I can understand, bring maybe some documentation or some data showing what happens when you have an unwarranted stop sign. Was that what your request? I just wanted to make sure I got.
I would like to know what you all as the department are doing to monitor non-warranted stop signs.
Understand.
And I would love if that included a list of every time we were ever sued because of an unwarranted stop sign.
We can do that.
Commissioner.
So I'm just going to call them speed bumps because that's what I know them by, that are depicted in this picture, is that on the main street? And if so, is it having an effect?
Yes, it is having an effect, slowing speeds down. But if you're specific to compliance with the stop sign, those are on the on the approach that has. Those are on the approach that does not have the stop.
So some of that information could be provided in that data that we requested.
We
correct?
can, yes.
Yeah. So we'll get some information related to that when we get the data in next month's meeting surrounding this.
I got one last question. Would there be a pinch point? Would you have a pinch point that close to a speed bump? A speed bump like that?
Sure, yeah. You mean if we were to pinch it? Yeah, and we can adjust the location of the speed cushions as well.
So we got all that, right? Okay. Thank you for your time. Item 7.2, update on reducing posted speed limits on Hermitage Avenue, Lebanon Pike from Korean Veterans Boulevard to the Wilson County line requested by NDOT. I'm gonna let you all go first.
Yes, we have had some success on this. We've actually been to scheduled meetings with the district. So we have been to Councilmember Huffman meeting. You can see in the staff analysis, actually, the recording of the meetings that we've actually been present to. So we're on the agenda for Huffman's meeting the 28th and for Councilmember Gregg's meeting on the 29th. We're also working with Councilmember Coop, and he requested that we do a district meeting for his section. His section, if you remember, is section 1 through 5. It's from KVB to Spence Lane. That's the section for the speed limit reduction request. So we are going to, we have been requested to have that meeting, and we request to defer this until we've had those meetings with the district to provide education to the communities. That's what our request has been from the council members as well.
Go ahead.
I will say this, last month we also requested an engagement plan that we talked about. That has been developed for this corridor based on our community engagement playbook So we did develop an engagement plan and based on those guidelines that were developed as part of that process. So that does exist, and we are working along the track of delivering that. So like we talked about previously in the August meeting, we would like to get before the public in these district meetings and educate them on what we are doing and the reasons for the speed limit reductions.
Anything else?
That's all.
Charles, I believe you're here to speak on this. Please state your name and who you're with for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Weingartner. I am representing the Vision Zero Advisory Committee today. A brief timeline. I was here last month with two other advisory committee members. We spoke on this issue without any actual, we were representing the advisory committee. However, we were not making a official advisory statement. We chose to defer making an official advisory statement at last meeting because just prior to it, we learned of NDOT's request for a deferral. But we would like to make our official statement at this time, which we had originally formulated in the month of July. Concerned stakeholders. The Vision Zero Advisory Committee works with the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure to eliminate all traffic-related deaths and severe injuries, and at the same time, increase safety, equity, and mobility for all users. As a part of their Vision Zero initiatives, NDOT has pinpointed a high injury network where users face an 8-fold higher risk of injury or fatality compared to other roads. A key factor in NDOT's Vision Zero program to address the high injury network, as a key factor, the department commissioned assessments of operating conditions along several of Nashville's arterial corridors to reduce crashes and crash severity on these roads. Lebanon Pike is not just one of the most dangerous roads in Nashville, it's one of the most dangerous roads in the state for pedestrians. This portion of Lebanon Pike averages more than 500 crashes and 10 deaths per year. TDOT has identified Lebanon Pike as an area for safety improvements through multiple Complete Streets initiatives. Consistent with the FHWA proven safety countermeasures in the Nashville Vision Zero Action Plan, NDOT seeks to move from determining speed limits on the 85th percentile standard and instead base recommended speed limits based on a combination of operating speeds at the 50th percentile while also considering land use, road conditions, traffic volumes, crash histories, and the presence of vulnerable road users to reduce traffic fatalities and other serious injuries. Efforts to reduce traffic deaths to zero are not arbitrary. It represents a commitment to prioritize human life and health. Lebanon Pike will continue to evolve and change as the neighborhoods and businesses along the corridor grow. Setting lower speed limits is not the only action needed, but it is an important step that should not be overlooked. VZAC recommends additional enforcement and safety measures along the corridor. However, advocating against speed limit reduction because these measures are not in place yet or because of unsatisfactory enforcement conditions suffers a perfectionist fallacy. Reducing the speed limit alone will not be a cure-all for increasing safety, but it remains a critical action. Moving to a more holistic style of speed determination has resulted in NDOT calling for the reduction of the posted speed limit on many sections on Lebanon Pike. The entire committee wishes to express our support for these changes, which are essential to reduce crashes and crash severity on our roads. Although reducing the speed limit on this corridor may not solve all associated problems, it remains a worthy endeavor. Most people want to follow the law, and the residents of this corridor desire safe roads and speeds. We request your support for NDOT's efforts to enhance safety on Lebanon Pike. Thank you for your attention on this urgent matter. Sincerely, Nashville Vision Zero Advisory Committee. And I would also be remiss to fail to mention there was a pedestrian fatality in the past month.
Thank you for that. Deputy Director.
Yeah, we definitely are right on the same page with Vision Zero, the Vision Zero Task Force. We want to implement the lower speed limit here. We are also working with our council members to make sure we notify the public of what we're doing. That has been the concern that they brought to us. So we recognize that, and at their request, we are working to have those meetings with the district. I've attended one meeting with Councilmember Huffman's district. It was very positive. The response on the lower the speed limit on Lebanon Pike was very positive. I was very encouraged by that meeting. So I definitely we are wanting to honor what our council members have requested us to do. We understand also a part of this is making sure we're clearly communicating to the public of what we're doing and when we're doing it and why we're doing it. I understand that in the past we have done, like for Davidson Road, for example, we did a little bit more outreach and a little more community engagement prior to that one. This one we did not. We did not do the same level of education that we are looking to do at this time for Lebanon Pike. So we would like to complete that process. We feel like we're on a good track for that. So we are headed that direction. And I would like to state we greatly respect our Vision Zero Task Force and their involvement in here. However, we're not here to debate back and forth with them on a safety measure. We are here I believe, when you have a public comment, you have 2 minutes to give a public comment. This shouldn't be a back and forth dialogue between us and another body.
I appreciate that. Legal, could you clarify what the rules around public comment are?
You can sign up and you have 2 minutes approximately to speak, and that is pretty much it.
We need to have a discussion on the agenda about the public comment rules were given to me differently at the time. It was at the discretion of one, I believe when the statute was implemented, it was the option of us on the time that we could give and when we could give it. So if that is in fact the definition or what's written, we would adhere to that moving forward. And
I just wanted to offer clarification.
Hold tight.
Chair, we have suggested 2 minutes as an appropriate time, but it is in your discretion to change that rule. I see on the agenda, it says keep comments to 2 minutes or less. But if you would like to make a motion to not bypass the rule, but to amend the time for public comment, you may do that.
The way it was explained to me was that the public comment for items that weren't on the agenda was limited to 2 minutes. If there's a comment related to an agenda item, the time limit didn't apply, but it could be wrong.
As far as boards and commissions are concerned, I think council just amended their own rule, but as far as boards and commissions are concerned, the state law requires that public comment be for items germane to the agenda. So not necessarily on, but germane or related to the items on the agenda. But you may change the time prescribed.
So, hold tight. So am I hearing that if somebody from the public comes up and speaks, whether it's germane or not, it needs to be limited to 2 minutes, just for clarification?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a prescribed time limit in the state law. I think you can change the time limit if you like. But I think your board, I think you at one time decided that it would be limited to 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I think that's my recollection. I'm going to look in your bylaws right now to check.
It was
see if
my,
it's in there.
yeah, I'd love clarification on it because we want
Sure.
to abide by the rules for sure. To the deputy director's point, it was my understanding that when that came out, the public comment section at the beginning was for anybody giving comment, and then on specific items, we
My
could,
only point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me get clarification if you don't mind. So that if it was an agenda item that the public had comment or whatnot on it, it was at the discretion of the commission chair to, and we can provide clarification at a later date. I just want to make sure we're abiding by the rules. I think it's good practice for the community to provide, I don't want to call it back and forth, but if there's something that said that they didn't know and they would like to provide a comment based on information that they have, for the commission to make an effective decision, I believe it's warranted. I think it's right. I think it's fair, with specific to something that's affecting their community and or their passion specifically. But again, legal, I would defer to you all on what is appropriate and what the rules are around that. Sure.
Sorry, just a clarifying question. As somebody who was serving on a different board or commission when that state law was passed and received different advice, my understanding was the state law mandated that we provide public comment to items that are on or germane, but there was no limitation in the state law regarding accepting other comments. So I think if we're going to clarify things, we should clarify that as well, because what I just heard was that it has to be limited, but my recollection from legal advice from Metro Legal received at the time was that it doesn't have to be limited, but it could be if we so chose.
That's what I remember.
I was merely going off of what your agenda item says, or what it says at the top of your agenda, and I think what I had learned prior. I think that she's correct, and we can certainly research that.
So let's research it. I think just in general, I would like to approach this as if, I'm not going to let monologues and long speeches, happen. But if there's something specific to an agenda item where a community member is here and or somebody that is related to that item, I don't want to have a stopwatch, right? But if it's appropriate to,
Right.
in an item that has a lot of, i.e. the vending or what have you, to where we've had 20 people that need to come up and speak, then I feel it appropriate. But if you could research those rules and, we could talk about them offline and address them so that, one, the agenda is modified so it reflects what's necessary, and then so that I have a better understanding so I can better and effectively lead this commission as chair, that would be great. Commissioner.
If we're going to go in a rabbit hole of our rules and procedures, my understanding of how this is supposed to operate is all of our questions up here are directed towards you to then delegate who should be answering and who can. And our representative from NDOT, no offense to the deputy director, is Andrew. And Andrew is the one who should be speaking for NDOT. And so we do a lot of recognizing other people in the room as well. So just kind of, if we're going to look at that and the clarifications of who should be speaking and when should they be recognized, that would be appreciated as well.
So if we could add that, and then in the pre-meeting when we review, it'd be great to talk through that.
I have an answer for you right now. According to...
Well, I'm sorry, Andrew, I know you do. Well, go ahead and do that if you got it.
I was going to say, according to the standing rules that this commission adopted on February 13th, 2023, I just lost my place, I'm sorry. At all public hearings held by the commission, the chair shall have the authority to limit the number of persons allowed to speak on an issue and to limit such speakers' time. And that's what it says.
And right now, my discretion is
It is. It's up to you.
He's okay to speak.
And I would like to reiterate, we don't disagree with the Vision Zero task force at all. I was just, we seem to be going back and forth. we're not arguing, we're not disagreeing with him. All our proposal is for us, we've been requested by the council members to have these district meetings, which we are going through the process to do that prior to moving forward with the deployment of the speed limit reduction.
Appreciate that comment. I think, are there any questions just to recap and try to remember last month's meeting, the conversation was around the importance of this corridor, and the deferral was to provide time to engage and communicate with the appropriate parties. And we didn't want to defer this for 60 days, 90 days, or whatever it was. We deferred it a month so that we could understand and hear the progress that had happened, that you all had made, and being more intentional and specific as to what it was that was being done. I think the part B to that, Deputy Director, I would like to ask and/or Andrew, what's next? Like, what else do we have to do? And when do we see this NDOT being comfortable for us to review something for a vote?
Yes. So we are, as mentioned earlier, we have meetings in Councilmember Huffman's district on the 28th. We have a meeting on the 29th in Councilmember Gregg's district to bring this before there. And it's not, let me be clear, it's not a matter of us proposing something and receiving feedback. It's a matter of us educating the community of what we're doing, when we're doing it, why we're doing it. And that's how we feel like we do agree with the council members that that's the best approach, that we don't feel like we're sneaking up on someone with a change. And we don't want the negative perception that could come along with that we're trying to do something to capture people speeding or do something in more like a speed trap or something like that. We want to make sure we're communicating to the public what we're doing and why we're doing it. Like I said earlier, the first meeting was very effective that we had with Councilmember Huffman. It went great. There was very good reception from the community. A month to be on those, to get those scheduled on the agenda. Some council members only have one meetings a month. Some council members don't have district meetings a month. So that's why it has taken this time to do that education. So we are requesting a deferment. We also would like to, we have talked about phasing the project like we was discussed during the last session. So we are wanting to move forward with the first phase of this, which is the section, we actually have the map on the board, the section 1 through 5, which is to Spence Lane, KVB to Spence Lane. That is actually by data the most dangerous section and the section that has the highest percentage of incidents occurring. So we would like to move forward with that after we've had, the community meeting with Councilmember Coopin. He is not here present in the room. I was going to ask him if he would be okay with us conditionally, the commission conditionally approving us to move forward with that deployment, considering we are working to schedule a meeting with him in his district, but he's not here to ask that question.
Appreciate that. Can somebody go see if he's in the hallway? Because I think this is important. Go ahead, please.
Staring at this page and seeing a recommendation of NA is very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
A woman did die in between our meeting last time where we talked about this, deferring it again. And that's a section of speed limit that's 45 miles an hour right now, and we wanted it to go down to 35, which is a fairly significant reduction in concern. And now we're going to try to segment this, and we're going to talk about it where 1 through 5 is an area where we want to look at it in the first phase. The woman who died was in segment, that's 11. And
yep.
When I was looking at the Vision Zero information, that's segment 11 is the most dangerous.
Based on the incident reports and the crash rates of that area, that if you sum the area of 1 through 6 together, that is the most, where we have the most incidents occurring. The density within, if you sum section 1.6, you may be right in that if you take that separate section, it could be higher than in, one of those sections separately. But if you take those and sum those together, sections 1 through 5 are where we have the most number of incidents.
It's not number of incidents. I mean, we have sections of the area that is, where's the words for what it is in that?
You're talking about the crash rate, or?
No. I would like. Severity? No, I'm gonna pull up the Vision Zero map. You can come back to me, it's fine.
I think the larger point is,
We agree
yeah,
with this. I mean, we're all on the same page. We are moving forward with this deployment.
Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Muhammad?
What are our options here? So we can,
Yeah, so I think last month it was to defer it multiple months, and we decided to 1 month? Okay, so last month, you all brought this to us just to look to, as a presentation.
Correct.
And then it was deferred 1 month with the understanding that there was some outreach and some things that needed to happen with the council members and the community within these districts.
That's correct.
Right now, today, the only request is to defer it again. There has not, to my knowledge, been a recommendation from staff to act on this in this month's meeting. It is a request to defer it a month. The representative here from Visit Zero, they came last month with the anticipation that we were going to have action today. There was not action. So they have presented and provided a statement based on their thought that there was going to be action here, and there's not, given their position and their importance. And I'll come back to you.
I think my point of clarification is necessary.
I'll be back. So does that help answer your question?
yeah, so what can we, is our only option to defer, or can we move forward with this?
I think that's the question for the legal. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if we can suggest or provide anything while they're looking. Commissioner Cornick, if you don't mind.
Oh, it's our high injury network. Our high injury network starts downtown. There's a small segment, so maybe 1 and 2. But then there's a break of this area that is not part of it. And then the rest of it is, and most severely, it is segment 11 and the intersection with Old Hickory Boulevard. So it seems like that should be phase 1, not the area closest to downtown 2.
Yeah, we came to you, before you with the entire section, right, with the study. So we came, and then based on feedback that we received from a number of council members, we requested a deferral so we could have meetings with the districts and their communities. So that's what our request was last time. So I don't dispute what you're saying, Commissioner. We do want to move forward with this speed limit reduction, but we have been asked by those council members to talk to their districts, and that's what we agreed before. In the last and the one, we requested a deferral.
Councilwoman.
Sorry, just a quick clarifying question. So I think that just might be helpful as we're talking through this. Segments 1 through 5, I think, are all in Councilmember Coopin's district. 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 10, I think, are all in Councilmember Huffman's district. 11 is mostly Councilmember Gregg's, though a portion of that is actually the district line. So I just note that because it's actually not, well, other than the district line portion, 12 and 13 are the only ones that really seem like nothing is like on the books or in the works. So I just thought that might be helpful information.
So 1 through 5, we have the councilman here. Okay.
Can I point out clarification?
Yes, you may. Absolutely.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, you stepped out. We've gone through like the discretion of the chair and the time. And just give me 1 second if you don't mind. Okay?
Totally, just clarifying the districts.
Yes. Legal, could you answer Commissioner Muhammad's question on what do we have the power to do?
You are authorized to reduce speed limits. That is part of the charter, your charter requirements.
So we can make suggestions.
Yes, you can. Their request is to defer. You can make a motion to approve or deny that request. And then you can discuss other options if necessary.
Okay.
Because you have the authority to establish these speed limits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council member.
Appreciate that. Welcome back. Just to clarify, previous District 9 did have segments 1 through 5 in it, but with the 2023 election and the redistricting, I only have segment 1 in my district. The rest, I believe, might be Councilman Vo, but I'm not sure. So I can only speak to my segment 1. And Dot approached me seeing if I'd be supportive of approving that. We talked about having a community meeting. I've reached out to a couple of constituents in that area. Haven't had a full meeting, but so far the thoughts were supportive of the speed reduction. I have my personal concerns about how we're going to maintain 25 miles an hour. I personally drove that section at 25 miles an hour, and I got almost rear-ended, honked at, and driven around very quickly. So I would hope that this comes with additional traffic enforcement and other road calming measures to make people follow that speed limit reduction. But I know I've heard overall support. Again, I haven't engaged all the residents in that area, but so far I've heard good things about segment 1.
If you don't mind, Charles, right?
Correct. Thank you. When I was here last month with the 2 other members of the Vision Zero Advisory Committee, we were here representing ourselves. I am here today representing the entire Vision Zero Advisory Committee, and the letter that I read to you is our stance. If NDOT and this commission determines that the deferral is appropriate, we understand that. I am here today representing the Vision Zero Advisory Committee purely in support of lowering the speed limits.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions from, yes?
I just want to clarify, and I think it was last month we talked about, it was even if we approve it today, it's still a 90-day implementation period.
It would take 30 days to, 30 days is the typical time frame as far as the signage. That's our current delivery time frame, and Andrew can speak more specifically for that. So it wouldn't be 90 days. But I think maybe factored into that 90 days was the community outreach, the community education that we were going to do as results prior to that. That's what was factored into that 30 days. So, but once we are on go, as far as the deployment, it would take approximately 30 days at the maximum to do the replacement of the speed limit signs. However, we would want to follow that up with notice to the community as well in communication.
So it'd be 30 days to actually install the signs?
That's correct.
So say you get approval today, how quick could you start installing signs?
Within 30 days.
Okay.
I think given sort of the changes in district lines, and sorry, I confused everybody. I also flipped Greg and Huffman, which I should know better. I do know better. And there is a meeting on the books before our next meeting. I would support a deferral of all of it at this time. Just Councilmember Huffman was here. Councilmember Gregg has a community meeting scheduled. I think lowering the speed limits 2 weeks ahead of a community meeting in which we are talking to people about lowering speed limits seems a bit disingenuous and doesn't feel like a great way to build public trust in this process.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Gibbs.
A couple of questions. I remember in the July meeting when this first was shown to us, I had questions about the way that the speed limits were set. So I'd like that question answered. And then to go along with that, if we're trying to lower the speed limits in some areas to 25 miles an hour, and then we have other areas where it is 35 and 40, going by the same logic that you presented dealing with the stop signs, you're inviting people to disregard the speed limits that are set, the way that I'm looking at this.
I can speak to that. These speed limit recommendations are based on engineering studies where we have looked at the 85th percentile and the 50th percentile of the speeds out there right now. And these recommended speeds are in line with the 50th percentile of the speeds that are out there right now. There will be some days and some times where perhaps you could go faster than the recommended posted speed limit, but for half the time, the traffic is going at those reduced speeds already. So.
Thanks, Siri. Exactly. Are there streetlights along these paths that will be phased to work with the speeds that are set here?
They would require retiming.
Yes, we are actually doing that now.
Okay. I'm still just having a problem understanding you're at 25 miles an hour in some areas, and then you're going up to 40. It would seem to me that the best way to deal with this would be to try to keep the speeds as close to each other as possible. And to hopefully get people, you set the lights so that you get through there going at 25 miles an hour. Then if it gets bumped up to 35 miles an hour, the lights are timed that way.
No, I understand your question. And we do look at this. We don't just take the recommendations that come from like the average speed for each section and set that. We have to look at that in consideration of the other speed limits on the other sections to make sure we don't have, for example, a drop to, we have a speed limit of 40 here and then a drop, and then it's recommending that we drop to 30 here. We're recommending that we drop to 25 here. It does have to make sense logically. So what you see up here is what was a result of the study and then the recommendation of us. We are actually also talking about that as well. So yes, I get your point, and we do look at it logically like that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, we spent the last one about stop signs, and that was engineering judgment, and engineering judgment in this one is to lower the speed limits. And so then it's just community engagement is this next part, and that's the reason why we're being asked to defer it.
Yes, you're being asked to defer it to do community education on what, when, and why we are lowering the speed limit at the request of the council members that we've coordinated with.
And what community education has been done with Dickerson in regards to the speed limits that we reduced?
So as for the Dickerson Road project, we had actually an area plan that was going on at that same time. So we did multiple public meetings along that corridor where the speed limit reduction was discussed. So there was quite a bit. In addition, we had meetings with the council members. So there was a larger amount of engagement that took place on the Dickerson Road prior to the study. We came to you before, we put this on the agenda to lower it, and then we received feedback, obviously, from council members that they would like us, and we recognize, we don't want to lose the public confidence or have people skeptical or against why we're lowering the speed limit, thinking we, may not doing it for the right reasons or not looking at it the right way. So we definitely recognize that and listen to the council members. That's why we decided to ask for a deferral in the last month, and we are back before you doing the same thing as we are still we're still down that pathway, actually having we're getting an applause over there. That's not for us. So that would be what we're coming before you and asking to complete that process.
And the other piece of this is just Dickerson is a future project that we're going to be working on, whereas you're building out the plan construction of things, some of it may be in progress, but it's not there. Whereas a lot of this stretch has already had a massive TDOT project to add some complete street infrastructure that's there. So
That's correct.
was the speed limit never discussed in any of those public engagement meetings?
To my knowledge, it was not. But we can look and see that, but to my knowledge, it was not talked at those meetings. You're talking about with the TDOT in the engagement meetings on Lebanon Pike?
Yeah, I mean, this
Okay.
seems like we're making up what the order should be based on how we want to have this go.
Understand.
Where like, this would be the place that you would actually lower speed limits, because now we've done the other stuff. And we want to see that safety there, where Dickerson, we talked about it, but we're not doing anything yet.
Understand your point.
And so at some point, we're just gonna lower the speed limits on Dickerson. There's nothing
Right.
there to make it actually go lower. We're here, we did some stuff. So now it should be a lower speed limit because of the tools that we put out there. Personally, I would rather just vote on this today and pass it today. They're gonna have a 60 to 90-day engagement plan based on the time it's gonna take. This is my opinion on that. I voted no last time to not defer it, and I'll vote no again today.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Can we go ahead and approve it today since there's already meetings already in place and the meetings will happen before they'll start the work anyway?
If the votes were there and the motion was made when we asked for a motion, that's what it is, I think.
I'm asking because I understand if we approve it today, they're not going to be able to start the work for 30 days. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the meetings would happen before we meet before the commission again next month.
Well, they would have to, I guess there's nothing on the floor today the question is, and we talked about this last meeting. So what was the recommendation last month to defer it, or was there a recommendation in there and then it was asked to defer? I feel like there was a recommendation there. Was the recommendation deferral?
I don't know, I'll check with Andrew there, he can maybe give, but I believe it was a recommendation to deferral. We deferred, I believe the motion was a deferral in the last meeting.
What was that, there it is. So what was the recommendation in July? What is this, August?
To approve it. July was to approve it, then it came before us
You have
again.
it pulled up, the agenda from,
I'm looking for it.
was it July or was it June?
It was the July meeting that this was first presented.
And the recommendation, what was the recommendation in July?
Last month was a recommendation for a 3-month deferral.
Right. So then we deferred it a month, but we had discussion around if we didn't defer it, what would happen? And Ms. Costonis was here at the time, I believe, and she said then when this would be implemented. Just point for clarification. So the motion could come forward to not defer it and approve this map as is. And then if an amendment or whatever would need to happen from your meetings or what have you, I think Councilwoman's point of, is fair and appropriate as well, to where, they're engaging with with the community in 2 weeks. So, they are making the efforts, but I think if we were to approve something or want to make a motion for that, it would be on that map. Sorry for rambling, but that's a tough question.
You could conditionally approve, subject to those district meetings occurring.
Go ahead.
I think, again, though, that I would just argue that whether it is conditional upon coming back next month or those happening, it does suggest to the people attending those meetings that those meetings don't matter and their voices actually don't matter. I also I have concerns because on the agenda, it says that it's just an update and not that it's asking us to adopt it, which means that 3 of the 4 council members covering this area aren't here, don't know this is happening. We only have 1 here because we caught him in the hall before he was leaving for whatever party is happening next door at the HRC. And so, I mean, but I don't see why we couldn't adopt it next month, mindful of the number of meetings happening over the next 2 weeks, assuming that somebody doesn't have some comment or helpful suggestion like Councilmember Coopin's here, which is that other measures might need to be included as it gets implemented, which is sort of the point of public meetings, right?
So is all the public meetings happening this month?
2 of them have been scheduled for this month, correct? We are working with Councilmember Coopin to get it hopefully this month, but we're not sure yet.
We should be able to get mine in this month.
So there's only one additional, and the map dropped, but based on the map, he's got segment 1. Huffman has.
I was backwards. Councilmember Gregg actually, I guess, has segments 2 until 9, and then.
And he's September 28th, right?
And then Councilmember Huffman has 10, most of 11, but like the top part of 11 it is the line. So half of the street is Councilmember Huffman's, half of the street is Councilmember Eslick's, and then the rest is Councilmember Eslick's. I do think maybe there hasn't been much communication with Councilmember Eslick, but I think it's been offered.
So with Councilmember Coopin and Councilmember Gregg, we can get 2/3 of the map done next month. He only has a portion of 11, so how's that work?
He has a portion of the route.
Right, but then can we approve can we approve 3/4 of it, or yes?
I
Okay.
think that's in our discretion, depending on how conversations, if they're existing with Councilmember Eslick, are occurring.
Love that. So can we commit to having enough information for a vote for 1 through 11 next month?
We can.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Is it beneficial to do 1 today with council member here, or do you need the meeting?
I think that if we're doing engagement meetings, I've got a meeting scheduled already for some other matters that I can attach this to. So kind of to Councilmember's point, I think it would be supportive, but I'd hate to put forward public comment and then have people not be supportive and then have to say, well, sorry, it's already passed. So I think having the month would be helpful.
Legal, to Councilwoman's point, could we have an conditional deferral based on having 1 through 11 ready for a vote next month? Is that an appropriate motion?
Yes, I think that would be an appropriate motion.
Okay.
I think the council member's concern was about public notice on any action that might take place today, because the agenda item is listed as an update. It's not listed as an action item. So
Understood.
I think I'm looking at the, my internet went out, which is not helpful, but I pulled up the August agenda and staff report, and they had asked for a 3-month deferral. And I think Ms. Thompson might have to help me with the minutes, but they granted the 1-month deferral with the contingency that they would provide an update.
That's correct.
Today.
That's correct.
And so I think they're providing the update.
I think I had one other question to that update.
Sure.
I want to give you a chance to go, Councilman. You good? Commissioner Kornick? You're not a councilman yet. Sorry.
I do respect the fact that the agenda item does say update. That seems to lead that it would be difficult for people to actually understand what was being discussed here today. I think it's a bad precedent to set changing speed limits based on having a council member meeting in the affected district. And I say that from a stance of, there are other things where Metro Council has created actual rules to how they operate, that you have to have a certain meeting in order to get something done. we don't have a rule that's based on that. They don't have a rule that's based on that for speed limits. They've designated that authority to us. We've now talked about this multiple months. There's a news article about this. There's been plenty of opportunity for people to provide comment, and there hasn't been a lot of comment that's come to us. We've had opportunity for public comment. Nobody's shown up. So, obviously going to the meeting and help educate them is great. Have we gotten emails about this? I haven't gotten anything forwarded to us in a sense of this is an issue for us deciding on it. So that's the struggle I have in waiting to have these meetings, which just seem to be a level of, I don't know, it's just checking a box, which I don't know if we need to check a box because we've done the engineering work, we've looked at it. The education part is the hard part. And I think you had mentioned it before, people like to just follow the rules and they get it when they see it presented to them. And I wish we could have had a better engagement plan up front. We didn't. And this is now, it needs to be a education plan. And it just needs to be a view of here is what this looks like and why we've done this. And I know the first meeting with Huffman wasn't necessarily that wasn't a meeting specific on this process. It was just added to a community meeting where council members have them all the time for all sorts of stuff and bring in people to discuss things, so.
So there's a comment here in the staff report. NDOT is evaluating separating the set of recommended speed limit changes into more than one phase, and will continue to work towards additional recommendations for this arterial corridor in the future. And I respect, we need to move this forward, given the nature of public safety and pedestrian safety. So we've identified how we can break this up, and I want us to be pretty specific in how we record this, but I think we've got the engagement of the necessary people within the next couple weeks. If we can entertain a motion for 1 through 11 to be presented to us next month for a vote with, is 14 of them? With the understanding that we have a plan for what we're proposing for 12 through 14, whether that be next month or the previous month. And defer it 1 month with the condition that 1 through 11 will be presented and ready for a vote. Is that something that you feel like the department could make happen?
I think I understand. Are you saying that today you would
I'm saying that if there was a motion to defer this for 1 month.
And then we would come to a vote and you would have the opportunity to vote at the next
meeting on 1 through 11
for sections 1 through 12.
12 or whatever, or what, as much as you feel like you can get.
Okay.
I would be optimistic and say that if we're going to defer it, we can defer it all together as a group. And if we need to split it out in the meeting, then we can, but this way we continue to move forward on all of it.
I'm suggesting we defer it as a group, but conditionally that next month they bring 1 through 11 ready for a vote.
Or a portion.
With a recommendation, or all of it, as much.
Because I think we may be in a position on all of it next month.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do we have to wait for the council members for these meetings? Can NDOT just have these meetings?
Let's let him answer that real quick.
Yeah, we typically work with the council member to engage their districts and their constituencies. That's just part of our practice when we have these community meetings. So we have reached out to them direct, and that's how we typically, that's our process. We could separately hold meetings without council members, but we prefer to have the council members engaged in the public meetings that we have.
Question?
Yeah. And in this meeting, there's not something that someone's gonna walk up to the community meeting and be able to say and be like, and change this plan. There's not. So we're not giving anyone the opportunity to actually give any meaningful, you're telling them what it is. So I don't understand the point of slowing down the process when the community input is not going to be taken into consideration anyways.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think you provide an opportunity for those to hear, the what, why, and when. We will be changing the speed limit, and then it's up to the commission to approve those speed limit reductions. That's the authority of the commission. So that's why we would be back before.
Am I hearing that we approve the map as is, and then they go tell them what's been approved, and then if there's changes, then it'd be changed?
I
feel like that's what I'm hearing.
No, I do, to Councilmember Evans' point, I do think that, it's some goodwill to go to people's community and be like, hey, this is coming. And, hopefully people are more apt to adopt it as a thing. Or at least we can say we tried and check off the checkbox. Sometimes you just got to check off the checkbox. So I can go either way on a vote for these today.
That was my point earlier, was can we do this simultaneously, approve and educate? Or is that not an option?
The problem now is it's not that we can't do that. It's just that we told people that we were going to go do these community meetings. And now what they're expecting at the community meeting is going to be the issue. And that, I think, was the point that the council member made of, we told them there's going to be education and engagement. We didn't tell them that it was approved already when they were learning about these meetings. And so now these meetings are scheduled just to say, we're going to come talk about it. But now they're going to get there and it's going to be like, we actually already did this. So I totally get that point, that this is, it's a self-inflicted problem of now we've set ourselves up to not be transparent, to not have that ability to go to those meetings and do education. This is exactly what we should be doing. We should be doing that constantly. There should be constant meetings about this stuff.
I think we should keep our word with the community. If they're expecting a meeting to talk about this, I think it's important that we do what we promised them. I think that's very important, not just now, 5, 10, 15 years down the line. I think it'll make a difference. And I agree, do it as a whole together. If we're going to defer it, we'll defer 1 through 14. And if we're going to approve it, then we'll approve it all at the same time. But the community, they need to trust us. And they need to believe us when we say we're going to do something. They need to believe that.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just make one more suggestion. If we can't get a meeting scheduled, that with the council member there, for any sort of scheduling reason, that a meeting gets scheduled in the time between now and the next meeting. And there can still be more meetings scheduled after that, but I think it would be an appropriate step to say we are scheduling this meeting first to have this discussion. You're invited.
No.
We'd love to have you there.
Yeah, I understand your point. So we do know that we have at least 3 meetings. 2 meetings have been scheduled, and then the third with Councilmember Coopin. So yes, we will do that.
I think it has to happen, right? This is what we're saying. We've got, if there's we're voting on this, we need to present something next month for us to put in place. Meetings or not, is what I'm hearing.
Can I just make one little suggestion on the 3 meetings we have that, it sounds like Councilmember Koopmans might be a different meeting, so we might not be able to do that for his, but for the other 2, if they're specific to the speed reduction, that it not say a District 14 meeting on the speed reduction, but that it be very broad to say Lebanon and Pike, and that way, if there are people outside of these council districts or Councilmember Eslick who doesn't have one on the book, we will have at least noticed 2 community meetings that address the whole road in all of the districts.
Thank you for that. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you. 7.2. Oh, we just did. Let's not do that one again. Sorry. No, sorry. 7.3, Munchies LLC update. Please state your name for the record, and we're going to limit this one to 2 minutes.
We'll be quicker than that, sir. Richard Rooker with NDOT. Munchies, last month you asked us to monitor and make sure that he was doing everything that he promised this commission he would do. He has, as of today, he's actually made a $200 payment this month, saying he made it on time. He needs no more citations, no further issues we've had with him at this point. So he's done everything that you all have asked him to do.
Great. Anything additional?
No, sir.
Really appreciate your grace and you all working with him. It sounds like it's been a good experience.
Yes, so he's caused no problems. He hasn't had any more citations. He's made more, trying to get this paid off. He actually's got it down to $1,134. So he's made significant strides.
Commissioner.
So I can't remember, but did we say that did we suspend his license or did we do it conditional?
We suspended him until he, showed that we could show this commission that he was going to, do the things that he was supposed to do and to make his slow pay motion, on all of his citations, because he had quite a few citations. He is making payments on those as the court has ordered him to do. So I believe last month, y'all just wanted an update. I think he was suspended, and you can lift that, or you can continue to ask me to monitor him, or whatever you choose to do.
Or last month.
Yeah,
you lifted it. You lifted it. Okay.
Yeah, it's been lifted.
So I can continue to monitor this, and if it becomes another issue, I can report back to you.
I don't think we need to keep it on the agenda. If something comes up, just you have the right rules and procedures in place to apply those. And as far as I'm concerned, this agenda item can be removed. And again, appreciate you working with it.
Yes, sir.
Last month, when his permit suspension was lifted, we were asked to come back and report, hey, how's things going with it? So
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item 8.1, NDOT report on waiving parking fees.
NDOT owes you a report of a standing list of special events for parking fee waivers for the year. And we should have given this to you back in July, but we omitted it from the staff report then. But we have a list of 3 standing special events that have been approved for parking fee waivers. One is the July 4th annual event. The other is the New Year's Eve annual event. And a third is, I hesitate to call it a special event, but the commission approved parking fee waivers for a homeless outreach program on Gay Street Connector. And those are the 3 that remain on our standing list of approved special events for the year. You may be wondering what happened to Live on the Green, but that has been another event that we've had, but they've been on hiatus for the past couple of years.
Okay. Item 9.1, the Vision Zero update, data center. Sorry. Did I miss something?
That is a snapshot that,
Can we go back before we start that?
Sorry, yeah, hold tight. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so on the waiving parking fees, do we charge parking on holidays still? Or we got rid of that with smart parking?
that, we got rid of that. Am I correct?
Those are the only 2 days that do not require a charge. Every other holiday requires a charge.
Repeat that? Yeah, come up here real quick, if you don't mind, Emmy.
Only the 2 holidays mentioned here a second ago are the ones that do not require a charge for the public. All the other holidays would require a charge.
Okay, so I thought these special event waivers were kind of specific to giving an organization 100 to 150 spots in the garage.
That's what this is pertaining to, is a waiver of fees for those event organizers to have space available in our parking garages to run those events. And the third one is the homeless outreach program that takes place along the metered spaces along Gay Street Connector.
Okay, so maybe the question that I was trying to clarify is just like, are there holidays that we don't charge parking broadly?
No,
That's gone?
not that I'm aware of, no.
This might just be, things are cached somewhere, trying to find the actual policy of what we have. I think that one of them that I had pulled up kind of still had holidays in there. So maybe that could just get sent out to us of what the actual policy that we're discussing.
I'll send that. I'll send the current policy to you. I think you're looking at an old document.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll shift to Vision Zero.
That final item is a snapshot of crash statistics that are provided to us courtesy of the Vision Zero Committee. Commissioner Woods had asked this to be included with the agenda every month, so this is the data for the current month.
I will say, this Brad Freeze with NDOT. I think I haven't done that the whole time. I haven't introduced myself. I apologize for that. So I just now remembered. Chair, I think we've talked previously about having quarterly updates where our Vision Zero coordinator comes and gives a presentation. But I also think that giving a monthly update as far as the numbers is valuable for the commission to see where we're tracking with this regard.
And I think I asked it last time it was up to, any progress on the Vision Zero dashboard?
We are actually, we've had progress on a report card. So we are working on, we actually have a report card generator. We're doing some formatting. So we hope to get that out very soon and be sharing that. But the dashboard is also part of that same process as far as updating and keeping that information fresh.
So what I heard is, are we going to keep seeing this monthly, or are we going to have somebody come in quarterly?
You're gonna keep seeing this monthly. You're gonna keep seeing this monthly, and then, but we're also gonna have our Vision Zero coordinator come and actually provide you quarterly updates as previously.
So is that percent change, that's year to date, or is that?
Yeah, that shows you
month to
the
month?
year to date, correct. So you can see interstates, looks like for the up 60%, state routes down 30%. On local routes, down 21%. As a total, we're down 12% compared to year-to-date last year. So that just shows you where we're tracking.
So
And
the
then
average is
that
three a month for like interstate by ownership?
This is year-to-date from the start of the
Well,
year.
just that first line, 21, and that's 8, yeah.
Yes. What was the question again?
I'm just Sorry, fast math in my head. I was talking out loud. I shouldn't have done that.
No, you're good. So, and then the other table breaks it down a little bit further, showing you the mode, the vehicle, pedestrian, motorcyclist, bicycle, single vehicle. Just shows you the information that we can collect from the crash reports.
Yeah, I guess when you all see this, what is y'all's first reaction?
It's hard. We feel like it's positive that it's trending down in some areas. However, it's not zero. That's kind of the point. We're trying to get to zero, and we feel strongly that that's possible. So, but we are encouraged to see numbers going down. However, we're getting ready to enter into daylight savings time. So that always, the darker evenings and people coming home from work during those more dark conditions actually could cause that to bump up. So we recognize that, but at this point we feel we're encouraged to see a reduction. However, it's not zero.
On the by ownership, why is the state route and the local not one number? Why do y'all split those out?
So we split those up because as far as our jurisdiction, we have jurisdiction over the local routes and arterials. The state has jurisdiction over the interstate system. Both are important to us, but we have more direct impact on the local arterial streets.
So I guess the next spreadsheet says local plus state road for NDOT jurisdiction.
Correct.
How does that apply?
We have jurisdiction on the state routes and the local roads.
Gotcha.
In that we have, like, our traffic signals, we operate those traffic signals. Okay. The signage, we are responsible for those. So we feel we have more direct impact on that. However, both are important, so that's why we track both.
If I may, the bottom table shows a breakout from the top table, but it's minus the interstate.
I got you. Just curiosity, the single vehicle in the bottom graph, I mean, that's a drastic change. What is the?
It is.
What do you think that is? I mean, we're doing something right.
It's really, looking at this data year to year is good, and we do that, and we look to see how we can make different investments as a result of what the data is showing us. But you're looking at multiple year data and trend. That's when you can really capture some good trends and see multiple years together. So we try not to get too excited when we see these large reductions, and we want to look at those in comparison to multiple years of data. But yes, it does look like a large reduction currently.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I'll just put it out there of like what you see when you first see this. I think the last time that I looked, maybe last month, when some of us were talking about it, was just a level of, based on it's a 2040 plan or 2050 when we're trying to get to zero. Like if we could keep this pace, we're
on track for that downward trend. Yeah. That's what we like to see, but yeah.
I mean, it's a year's worth of data, and we're just now starting to get the wheels turning, but it's the right direction. So it's great to continue to see this progress.
Any other questions?
Motion to adjourn.
We got one more item. Sorry. You read it? Can we skip it?
Can I withdraw that?
You are going to love me. We have none today.
Great. Captain, you good?
Now, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.